Yes, so welcome to the webinar. Really great to have you guys here, and for week 4 of the 3-minute coach. And yeah, we've been running some of the live events, which has been really exciting. And please go and have a look on the website for some of the testimonials and videos that were recorded over the 2-day training, and really excited to see it in action live, but also be experiencing it here on the webinar. So I'm going to look forward to hearing how you guys are going. Love to see what's happened over the last week or so, and just get some feedback about what you've been implementing and what you've been trying to utilize. And love to hear some of the things that have been going on for you, and hear how you've been going implementing, if you've been doing that, or just how you've been going with some of the skills that we've talked about. So let's get this going here, and then we can see the full screen, which will be really great. So let's just have a look at where we've been. Let's just have a bit of a recap. Hopefully by now you've all had a look online, or you've had your password, so that you can have a look at some of the videos online. They're all recorded and up there, and this one will also be up online probably tomorrow. So let's just have a bit of a look. So obviously over the last couple of weeks we have we've looked at time, we've looked at removing fluff and managing state, and I'd love to hear how you're going with managing state. We've also looked at, in week 2, relaying the message and looking at focus and joining the dots, and we looked at that, accessing that through the feedback loop questioning technique. And so really love to hear how you've gone with playing with the feedback loop questioning. I got some cool answers back from some people who've been watching in the US, which has been really exciting to see what's happening there. And there's a few people over there getting some really great results using some of these techniques, which is really exciting. And then last week we looked at laser and getting right into the point, and we looked at the process of first thought technique. And so really love to hear how you've gone with that. I know there was at least one of you who's on the webinar who was at the 2-day training we had. Love to obviously hear your feedback. So we've been moving through the process, removing fluff, joining the dots, and really getting to the point, or at least starting that process, and trying to really chunk our time down by getting to the issue as fast as possible. And so I'd love to hear how you've gone over the last couple of weeks, whether you've implemented anything or you haven't implemented anything, or you've had a bit of a play with certain aspects of some of the teachings. And I really love to hear how you've gone. Love to get some feedback from some of you. It doesn't have to be all of you, but I'd love to get some feedback just to see what's been going on. I know, busy time for all, but still would love to just hear about what's been happening for you. Love to get some feedback. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to type something in for me. It would be really cool, because I'd love to hear what's been happening. So I'm just going to give you a second to do that. Would be great. I always think when I do this, I should have some thinking music or something, typing music. There's got to be some typing music somewhere that I can utilize. So let's just see if we can't unplug that, so that I could actually get to some of this. Thanks, Corinne. You could sing for our music. I could, but it might have everyone bail off the webinar. I actually didn't bring my guitar in. I'll bring my guitar in. That's what I should do, and play guitar to everyone. Not sure the singing is something that everyone wants to hear, but thank you for the encouragement. And exactly, play dangerously. I think so. Live on the wild side. Yeah. So Corinne loves the first thought, like the first thought concept. Yep, great. But you only listen to the video. Okay, so haven't tried it out yet. That's cool. And I know Leander, who was also at the event, really loves the feedback loop questioning. Excellent. Thank you very much. And who else have we got here? And yeah, great. So Adam says, been working at joining the dots with feedback loop and really looking for tag words, which is really cool. Excellent, thank you. And if there's any other comments, that'd be really great. If you could, just keep typing them in, and I might refer back to them shortly. But let's get underway because we've obviously got lots to get through. And and we've got some broader concepts that I want to talk about tonight. So that might take us a little bit just to work through those concepts, because I think, if we're going to sort of step up into the next level and go from time focused layers, we really need to get to insight. And in this webinar, I want to talk about insight and igniting the aha using sensory intelligence. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, because I think at the end of the day, when from a coaching point of view, the value that you can offer as a coach is really in this insightful place, in igniting the aha. I think that's really where the value sits from a coaching point of view, when you can give people that aha moment where they can find, really connect to that spark and really understand what's going on for them, so that they can propel themselves forward. And I think the more we can ignite this, the deeper we can ignite this, the faster they're going to move and the more effective they're going to be. And, in my world, I see so many times people getting stuck and just freezing, and either going into procrastination or just going to that freezing state because they just don't know what to do. They're not sure where to step next. And so I think, the aha moment obviously helps with momentum and helps to propel people forward. I think it helps to give them, clarity, insight to situations and issues, and really helps them to connect with, really help to connect with what's going on for them. Okay, cool. So thank you, Corinne. So feedback loop and tag words. Yeah. So I think the key with feedback loop, and having run this with lots and lots of coaches and lots of different people, I think that if you follow the process strictly, I think that it's going to help you to move faster into the center, so into the the core issue. And again, playing this game on webinar makes it a little bit tricky to really show deeply the example of how that works. And I know a lot of the time, or some of the time, people say, just like you're saying, that not seeing sort of really clearly about how that differs. And so I think the process for me is when you follow that, ask a question, listen to the answer, and ask a question based on the answer, and you start watching for key tag words. So what I often say to people, and certainly did in the training, is that the key here is not to listen to story stuff or script, but rather just tag a word that you've heard in the sentence, and then do a follow-on question based on that. Now, there's a couple of things that happen with that, and I think that I think one of the things that was really beneficial was that the model that I run around the questioning process and getting down into what I call the moment of truth. That part where clients get really, really uncomfortable about what's happening, and part of the power of the feedback loop process is about jumping them through that moment of truth, that moment where things get really uncomfortable. And for some, in some cases, part of it is they have that breakthrough moment. And probably what I'd love to do with you, Corinne, is sit down and have some chats with you about this process at a deeper level, because again, it's a bit tricky over through this process, and to really give you a clear example of how that works, and how it really differs. And I'd obviously love to understand where you come from and the process that you've obviously been playing with and using, and be able to really show you the differences or the intricacies of that process that I use. And certainly, for me, the process of feedback looping is really to question in, to go into the center, find the insight, which is what we're talking about tonight, and then follow the process on the way out. And so what I've often found is that the process sometimes seems like it's similar, but if you follow the process exactly, then I find that from zero to issue can be done, in 45 seconds, and two or three questions. And it may be a process that you're, already, that you're finding. And I'm just, it'd be great to have a deeper conversation with you about that process. So why don't we just go to unmute, and I'm just going to say, hey, Corinne, how are you? Are you there? Can you hear me, Corinne? Maybe, maybe not. So I've just unmuted you. I don't know whether you don't have a microphone or something. No, I have my mic on. Are you there, Corinne? Okay. So I've just gone silent. Okay. Can you hear me? I'm still talking, and I've just typed in, and I just tried to unmute you. I might try and unmute someone else. Leander, are you there?
Yes, I am.
I
Hello.
can hear you. Fantastic. All right, that's good. But I haven't been able to hear Corinne. So I'm just going to mute you again, Leander, if that's all right. So obviously others can hear me. And then I'm just going to try and unmute Corinne again. Are you there, Corinne? No, not there. Okay, so I'll just mute you again, and we'll have to take that offline. And let me just type this in to Corinne. So hopefully you can see that. And you've just written the same thing again. You've gone silent, you've gone silent. Interesting. So I'm not sure what's happened at Corinne's end, but I will, maybe we'll take that offline and have a bit more of a chat for her around the whole feedback loop processing. If anyone else has, got similar questions, maybe we can play that out a little bit more, so that I can give you guys a bit more of an understanding of the process, because the feedback loop stuff is absolutely the one of the um, key strengths of the program. And I think it's really important to make sure that that you're not only understanding, but actually working with the process. And again, through the webinar series, it's really tricky to give it full blown examples of that through this process. But hey, if I could get Corinne back, we could do that. But that's okay. So let's just go on. Let's talk about igniting the aha, and really looking at insights here and aligning insights. And I think for me, there's a process that I work through, and often talk about, called the body GPS. And I think that the body absolutely is its own GPS system. And I think when we're looking for insights, and we're looking at going deep really fast, I think it's really important that we use the body, or what I call the body GPS, because I think if we don't, what ends up happening is that is that now we've just got two Corinnes there, so that's interesting. So she's just re-logged in as a different Corinne. Corinne, are you there? Hello, Corinne. I can hear you typing.
I didn't know I was unmuted. Yes, I'm
You're
back.
unmuted.
Everything froze.
Yeah, what
Everything
happened?
froze.
Everything
That's weird.
froze and I had to go, but now I'm back.
Yeah, because I went and talked to some of the other participants and they could all hear me.
Ah, must have been
And
me.
and I
I'm
gathered
back
it
now.
was, yeah, I gathered it was your computer. So now I've got two Corinnes. So
That makes you an incredibly lucky man.
oh, it does, doesn't it? Amazing, fantastic. So tell me a little bit about your experience because I'd love to help clarify for that before I start diving off into some other concept.
So, sorry, my experience about.
Yeah, the whole feedback loop stuff because I get that through the webinar series it's a little tricky to really share that at
Okay,
a deep level.
so
So
so I would typically do what you say. Sometimes the issue is really clear, so that's not necessary. Other times I would ask questions.
yeah, and you've gone again. I yeah,
Words. Oh,
I'm
I can
losing you,
still hear
Corinne.
you.
Yeah, can you? I'm losing you. You're coming in and out. So I don't know whether your internet's slow
Okay.
tonight or
Yeah, I
something.
can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, right. So if you want to keep
All right.
talking for me, if it
Let's
drops out
let's we
again,
can talk another time.
yeah, I think I'll just take it offline because obviously your internet's playing something up, funny. So let's, I just think, I was thought it might be really good for everyone else to hear, but that's okay. I'm happy to run you through the process at a deeper level, offline, and hopefully that'll give you an understanding of the application of it. Because I'll just put you on mute again, just because with this process, regardless of what comes up, I always start the session with that process, even if sort of bit regardless of what happens, and then if the issue is clear. I use the process to deepen the issue, so I still use the process even if the issue is or what seems to be clear, because I find so often that what they think is clarity is not clarity. But again, I don't want to take it out of context for you because I don't know what context you frame the question up in. So what I think the best thing is that yes, we will, we'll talk offline with that. And if anyone else wants to have some deeper understanding of that, happy to do the same. So let's just have a little bit of a chat about something I call the body GPS. And I think that, the process of identifying insights, which, for me is the real value in any coaching session. And, a lot of the stuff that I talk about through this process is going away from time selling and into value selling. And I see so often coaches selling time rather than selling value, and a lot of the time, even when they think they're selling value, they actually are selling time. And so for me, when you start selling time, then people want to take as much time as they can get, and generally 5 minutes before the session ends, they'll come up with some whole new issue or situation, and they'll want more help with that, and they tend to watch time, and you just start getting valued by time, and so you start selling hourly, and it just gets ugly from there. And so I think this process, certainly the 3 minute coaching process, allows you to move away from that and start selling value based rather than time based. And so for some, it's a bit of a paradigm shift. I totally get that. And for clients, it's a paradigm shift. And we did a lot of talking about the transition transitioning clients, and we'll talk about that in our last webinar about how do we transition our clients into this, because it is a paradigm shift for clients as much as it is for the coach. So I think the important thing here is getting to that issue really fast and getting to the deepest part of that issue as fast as as fast as we can, because that's really where the value is, right in the heart and the center of the process. And so I think you saw me draw up this process the other day, and I'm going to see if I can get this to work, because the new Apple doesn't like playing with this very much, or the new iOS system and GoToWebinar are not friends. So we're going to just see how it goes. But I think what I've obviously drawn in the past is this process, where we're really wanting to dive down into the this aha moment. and come up with the the insights, which is what we're talking about in today's webinar. And so the process then is to come out the other end. And so in the work that I do, certainly around feedback loop questioning, it's about having the dance in and having the dance out. And there's this process about here, which I call the moment of truth, which is where people have that breakthrough moment. And I think, I think this is where where the value of coaching actually sits, is in this section here. And what we want to be able to do is to go from here to here as fast as possible. And the process of feedback looping will get you there in 3 to 7 minutes if you're just learning it, and a lot quicker if you've practiced in it. So, for me, it can be anywhere between 10 and 45 seconds to go from A to B. And then to ignite this center insight piece, which is really where the value of any coaching session lies. And so and so we want to be able to dive into this central piece as fast as possible. And so obviously questioning in, as we've discussed, grabbing those tag words and making sure we're asking the best questions possible, and then diving out the other side where we've got the 3 key actions through the rap sheet, which you're going to see shortly. And really, this inner sanctum here, past the moment of truth, is the insight moment where the value really lies. And so we need to get in there as quick as possible and get that ignition for our clients, so that they get the value of our session. And this can definitely be done in 3 to 15 minutes. And so a lot of the people I've been working with this use it in many different ways, from full sessions to part sessions, a whole range of ways they're using it, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we progress. So let's talk a little bit about the body GPS, because I think the body is a really sensitive instrument, and as a coach, if you're not using the instrument, then it's time you did. And I know some coaches do, and many don't. So let's just have a chat about the body GPS, because I think if you don't if you're not using the body GPS, then things can get really distant, and you're often further away than you think you are. So locating exactly what's going on gets really difficult unless you start to really utilize the body GPS. And for those that aren't sure, what I'm talking about is that a normal GPS in your car needs 3 satellites to locate itself. So to get a true location of where you are, the GPS has to triangulate your position. And so I think the body is very much the same. The body is trying to constantly locate itself in relationship to others, and therefore becomes a really valuable tool and instrument in locating where not only you are, but the other person is. And I think to a degree, it's a safety mechanism, so that we have some assurance about who we're dealing with and where they fit in and what they're about to do. And so we can keep really safe about our environment and the people we're talking to. And so what I want to do is help you to use the body GPS to be able to tap into this deeper space and tap into insights, so that we can leverage and ignite the aha moment for our clients. And in some sessions, I'm sure you've experienced this. What I want to do with the aha moment is I want to ignite it as often as possible. And so putting some conscious framework around it helps coaches to be able to utilize and access the aha moment at will. And so if you're not, I think you can get really distant. I think what can happen is there can be a real disconnection between you and the client, but a real disconnection for the client, more importantly, about what's going on in their situation. And so I think we want to dive as deeply as possible to be able to give them the insight, so that they can keep moving forward and make the right decisions and propel themselves to greater success. And I think, again, if you're not utilizing the full GPS capability of your body, and you're not really diving into these insights. And I know a lot of coaches who start to hesitate at the moment of truth, and it's generally a time that clients will start to loop in on themselves. And it's often a time where things can get really messy and complicated and confusing, and so it's really, really important that the coaches use quantum leaping and breakthrough experiences to get their clients over the moment of truth and into absolute clarity, so that they can then move on to take 3 really clear actions to have greater success faster. And at the end of the day, this whole process is about how do we get people from A to B as fast as possible. And just the process of chunking your time down to 15 minutes will have processes go faster, because clients will know that when they meet with you, that you're on the job and things start getting done really, really quickly. And so they'll actually start mimicking who you are and what you are in relation to them, and they'll actually start moving faster all by themselves. So for me, the whole 3-minute coach process was really about how do we get clients moving faster. And because if we don't, it's just going, results are just going to take longer than what they need to take. And I see so many coaches, in that space where the results take longer than they need to take. And if we apply some of the principles, certainly around the body GPS, then things shouldn't take long. In a lot of cases, things should happen really, really fast. And so this whole process is about doing that, and certainly connecting with the body GPS is going to help propel that forward. And some of you are probably already using some of the triangulation stuff that I'm about to talk about, some consciously, some unconsciously, and some not at all. And so I think it's about doing this more consciously and amplifying the success or the results that come from this. So I think when you do start using the body GPS consciously, I think what ends up happening is you start to connect deeper with your client. The client feels, that you're connecting at a deeper level. They go deeper. They find, more insights. They find deeper connection to their issue. They get better answers for what needs to happen, and they get answers outside of story, outside of stuff, outside of script. And get really true answers. One of the things I talked a lot about was about helping clients to sit in what I call meta time, so that sort of moment of now, that because where insights come from is in that meta time space. So a lot of stuff, story, and script comes from past experiences. So working with the left brain, a lot of the time, that's where answers are going to come from. They're going to be tainted by past experiences of either a similar situation, and then they overlay that past experience and start to tell story around it, and therefore it gets clouded. And what I want to do is I want to keep clients, or get clients, into a meta time state where they can really connect with what needs to be done right this moment, right now. And I think being able to use the body GPS is going to help you to connect deeper with the clients, and they're going to get better quality answers and better value out of the work that you're doing. It's going to take you using all of your senses. And your ability to triangulate based on a whole range of senses that you're going to access. And I think then at the end of the day, it helps you to access, your magic, whatever that is. And I think part of that magic is the, sensory intelligence piece that we're going to have a bit of a chat about as we go through today's webinar. And again, I think some coaches use this well, and other coaches don't use it at all. And I'm actually surprised at how many don't use it, or certainly don't use it consciously. And my emphasis for the webinar is about using and accessing this really, really consciously. And so really important that we start to access this and use it consciously. So let's just talk about 5 core principles. For me, the first one is about the words behind the words, and really starting to focus on what is actually being said. So not the words that are being said, but the subcontext or the subtext underneath the words is absolutely critical. Often when I'm talking to my clients and I hear them starting to go in, story stuff or script, it's really important that I don't go into that story with them and don't go into the scripts and the stuff with them and keep right out of it. And so that I can, as much as possible, remain, really present to listen to the words behind the words, what's really happening behind what they're actually saying. And so, so for me, I think part of this journey is the triangulation of, using your body GPS. And in this case, I think, let me try and bring this up again. If it's going to go play games, and we can just start drawing this. Here we go. Come on. Yay. GoToWebinar isn't liking this at all, so I'm hoping you guys can still hear me. I'm just not talking to myself. Maybe some of you can put your hand up if you can still hear me, just because my GoToWebinar is doing funny things. Great, thank you very much. So, and hopefully you can see my screen because I'm about to draw some stuff. So I'm hoping that that's what's happening, and that everything hasn't frozen at my end. So we'll just keep persisting, and we've got some yaps coming through, and all good. So we'll just keep going. So I reckon with the body GPS, so like I mentioned before, that a GPS in your car, for example, has to triangulate with 3 satellites to be able to tell, or to be able to locate exactly where it is in space and time. And so I think the body's no different. The body needs to triangulate with 3 satellites. And for me, those satellites look a lot like this. So I see on one side that we're going to triangulate by what we observe. So what do we actually see happening in and around the client? And so I call this very much observed assessment, or task orientated. We're going to triangulate by looking at what's actually going on. What are the tasks? What are we seeing that's actually happening? What do we see physically about what's happening? I think then we go into the things that are indicated, and these can be indicated by what they're saying or by what other people are saying. So we're really trying to look at not only what's the task, but what's true for what's really going on. So the indicated assessment is about what's really going on past what someone's telling you and into the truth. And so often this is around what you're hearing and trying to make sense of that. And then I think the final piece is what we call a sensory assessment. And a sensory assessment is really about trust. You've got to trust those sensory things that are happening inside you, those sensory feelings that are going on inside you. And so for me, what I'm looking at here is that when we get into the rap sheet process, what I'm really looking here is what I'm seeing written on paper, because you're going to get your clients to utilize the rap sheet process. And so it's going to be about what are you actually seeing on the paper. What are you seeing in the person? So what are you reading from the person, and what are you perceiving from what's going on? And I think what we want to do is triangulate from those 3 places so that we can get a clear location as to where the client is in space and time. So where actually are they? What's really happening for them, and trying to find the absolute truth of that, and getting really clear about where they are. And so for me in that process, and I hope you guys can still see me because I've just lost everybody. I know, here it is, it's come back. Excellent. And so in this process, in this triangulation, I am looking very much at the words behind the words, what's really being said. I'm trying to not get involved in the story and not get caught up with the script or anything that is physically going on for the person, and I'm trying to get right below what's happening. At the same time, I'm trying to look at the energy process that's going on and really look at the nature of what's happening with the energy in and around. And there are 3 processes I'm going to share with you in a minute about connecting with that, because I think at a deeper level, certainly at a right brain level, which so many coaches are not using, I think there's a whole heap of information that's going on that we need to access and tap into. And when we do, I think we have a huge resource and access um, to insights that are going to help propel the client forward faster. And so in my world, this is really where meta time starts to really play out, in this, the nature of energy. Because I think from a sensory intelligence point of view and a triangulation point of view, energy plays a really key role. And there are obvious times when energy plays a role, and we've all experienced it as children. We all experience it every day, where we either feel, if we go to a room full of people, we certainly sense who we need to, who we feel comfortable talking to, or who we don't want to move and talk to. Kids are really great with this. Animals are really great with this. And so I think, what they're picking up is the nature of energy. They're picking up what's going on from an energy point of view. And so, in my world, I want to read what's happening from an energy point of view and tap in deeper in, to that side, to that right brain side, so that I can help extract those insights and help them to get their insights. And so if I'm only using sort of left brain, then I'm really not I'm not using the body GPS to add any real depth. And in that process, I'm not going to be able to extract those insights, which is really where the value is. And so we want to use sensory intelligence, and I think this is probably the most important part of the whole body GPS process, is that I want to be able to really tap into that place. And I use three bits of information when I'm tapping in and using sensory intelligence. The first is spatial awareness, and being able to know what's happening in and around the space that I'm in, or in and around the space that the client's in. And so I'm really going to want to tap into what's happening in and around the environment, what's affecting the client, or what's affecting the situation from a spatial point of view. The second one I'm going to use is sensory acuity. And for me, sensory acuity is a process of what's happening, of being able to be really clear about what's going on in my body, and noticing whether that's, or knowing whether that's actually me, or whether it's a reflection of them. Because of energy, and there's a couple of theories that I work with. Theories like motion theory, which states that everything in the universe is constantly in motion. The other theories are, like attracts like, and the final one that I work with is that we're all connected. And I think from a sensory intelligence point of view, the theory around everything is connected, and is a really important one when you're using the body GPS to triangulate what's going on. And quantum physicists are doing some really cool research now about how everything is absolutely connected. And from a molecular point of view, at a subatomic particle point of view, some of their theories revolve around that if you change one molecule, then every other molecule in the whole universe changes, so that they don't collapse in on themselves. The other really cool research that was done using accelerometers is that they, when they've split an atom and they've sent two parts of the atom off in opposite directions, and they might send them off 20 kilometers apart in opposite directions, and they turn one of the atoms, or one half of the atom, and the minute that one half of the atom turns, the other atom 20 kilometers away turns at exactly the same moment. And they haven't been able to experience any delay in time when the two turn. And so, for me, that's a real indicator of the power of this, this connection. And so when we're with a client, from a sensory acuity point of view, that so often that what's happening in your body is what's happening in their body. And so from an insight point of view, it can be really beneficial to potentially bring some of that information to light. Not always, but sometimes. And through the feedback loop process, what I tend to do is ask those things in a question. and it might, might start with I'm sensing, or I sense this, or I'm, it might start with that sort of language, or it could start with tell me a little bit about so and so, and that could be a sense or a feeling that I'm having from a sensory acuity point of view. Things like it can be an emotional sense, it can be a physical sense, and so sometimes it's an emotional sense of either fear or anxiety or some gut sort of feel. And from a physical sense, it could be a pain somewhere. And so, we could put a whole lot of symbolic meaning around certain pains, and I don't necessarily want to go down that rabbit hole, but rather just to start to be able to access sensory acuity, which some of you may already be doing. But I think, again, from a more conscious point of view. And then it's about stepping into the intuitive intelligence piece. And we did a bit around first thought last week. And so I think this is a real extension of that first thought, the whole intuitive intelligence. And I think that there are a couple of different forms of intuitive intelligence. There's the intuitive part of intuitive intelligence, and there's also the gut feel part of intuitive intelligence. And I think it's really important that we access both of these parts, both the intuitive part and also the gut feel part. And so for me, there is two aspects of this. Yeah, the first aspect is around the intuitive intelligence side of things. And so if I draw my little Lynn Kazali man here, which was really great, I appreciate her gift in that. And then we look at drawing my beautiful little figure eight. I think that this process works with the latest research around the three brains. And so I'm not sure if any of you have had a look at HeartMath Institute, but HeartMath Institute has been doing a whole lot of research around the heart and finding heart. Brain cells actually in the heart. They've also started doing research around the gut and seeing the same thing, that there are actually neural fibers in the gut and also in the heart. And a lot of it revolves around the three brains, which is mind, heart, and gut. And so in my world, I look at that that intuition is a heart-mind exercise, where we're connecting with the neural information of the heart. And the HeartMath Institute has, in their research found that the heart often speaks to the brain more than the brain speaks to the heart. So it has this almost unique intelligence. And I think that you'll find, and I find, is the intuition or intuitive process comes from that heart-mind relationship. And generally it'll show up in images. So the intuitive process tends to show up in images and pictures and words and symbols. Whereas the gut response, so the gut mind response, is very much along the lines of feel, and we call it gut feel for a reason. And so generally the gut feel is as it says, a feeling and not necessarily direct information. And part of this is because of the evolution of humans from a Darwinian point of view, in that in any organism, the first brain that develops is the gut brain, because the organism has to know what to eat. So it has to know what to digest, and it's the gut brain that talks to the creature about that. So the gut brain is generally the first brain, from what they're saying in this research, the heart brain next, and the mind brain after that. And so because it's such a primitive brain, it doesn't necessarily see in images or words, but rather sees in feelings. And, so often when we have that gut response, we don't quite know what it is, but we just know that something's not right or something is right. And often if we follow that response, then we have, often have more success. And so as a coach, we want to actively use these tools to be able to access what's going on for the client. And so for me, that the whole first thought technique is a way of actually accessing that. And I use the first thought technique to tap into what's going on, to use my very first thought. Because in my research, what I found was that because the left brain, and we live in predominantly a left brain world, but because the left brain tends to work in past and future. So the left brain is very much focused on past and future, whereas the right brain is very much focused on the moment of now. And so from a left brain point of view, the left brain focuses on past and future, whereas the right brain just focuses on now. So what I've found is that when we're working with an intuitive response, we're working with the right brain, which works in the moment of now. And generally, what happens is because we live in a left brain predominant world, the left brain is really, really loud, whereas the right brain is really soft. And so because we've been trained that the left brain is the master brain, is the brain that's valued, because people who have left brain intelligence or high left brain intelligence generally gets paid more than people with right brain intelligence or low intelligence. So the higher your IQ, often, not always, but often the higher you're regarded in society, and also generally you get paid more. So we're taught to value the left brain more. But the fun part about this whole story, which I spoke about last week, is that the right brain, because it lives in the moment of now, is always the very, very first thought, and that's the whole process around first thought technique. And so generally, these intuitive responses and gut feel responses get processed through the brain. Certainly, intuitive response gets processed through the brain as the very, very first thought, the very first thing that pops into your head. And so, from a coaching point of view, it's something that I constantly use to be able to tap into what's really going on here, right now, in this moment, without getting caught up in the story, stuff, and script, which is very, very left brain activity. And so we want to be able to use that first thought to help triangulate and use the body GPS, because it's the most powerful part of the whole GPS system. And we need to be able to triangulate based on things that we're seeing happening, things that we're hearing, and things that we're feeling. And I tend to spend a little more time on this because most people aren't using it consciously. When you ask people about intuitive intelligence or sensory intelligence, everyone will tell you they've used it or accessed it or use it all the time, but very few people use it consciously. And so I think it's really important, if we're going to access the 3-minute coach process, that we start to actively use this. And for those that don't, the first thought technique is a really great technique to be able to really access that. And so for me, when you do, I think you end up in this state where you start to work with, and it's a bit tongue in cheek, really. But we start to work with that process, and we start to access the three brains and start to really work with the whole process of intuitive intelligence. And so, when that happens, we can actually start to spark the insight. And so from a 3-minute coach point of view, the key thing we're looking for is we're looking to spark the insight. We're looking for that aha moment. And some are profound and some are just very quiet. And so some can almost go unseen. But, for me, it's about activating that at the deepest level possible. So activating that as much as possible, because I think for clients, the value really sits in that insight, in that aha moment for them. And so, so I think really important that we start to spark that. We can use the process of first thought technique. We can use that process of sensory intelligence around sensory acuity, and start to access some of that. The other part is really accessing the nature of energy and really connecting at that level with clients. And it's important from a GPS point of view that we're connecting at all levels, at all three levels. The one that just seems to be left out the most is this level, and that's why I spend a bit more time on it. And I think when we do, then we can help pop them through that moment of truth. I think the other important thing is when we're popping people through in that moment of truth to get the aha, then we're often going to have to utilize what I call a quantum leaping. So we're going to have to quantum leap them from one side to often to the other. And so I'm going to put up online the 13 questions. So there are 13 key questions to ask, or ways to start a question. I'm going to put that up online because I don't think I've shared it with you guys yet. So I'm going to pop that up online so you can see the 13 essential questions and ways to start questions. One of those is the quantum leaping process, where what we end up doing is going from, we might be going down, some path really nicely. We've got a theme, we've got a thread going on, and then, we come up to this sort of moment of truth. And one of the ways to pop through that is to jump down into a whole new context or a whole new thread of questioning that may seem at first disparate from the original line of thinking. And one of the ways we jump that is through the intuitive intelligence process. and we jump down this whole next line. So what I tend to do is when I'm working with this process and when I've trained people live is that I get them to break their time down through the 3 sections. So I go, okay, there's 3 sections we're going to run here, and let's play those 3 sections. Let's do, 3 minutes here, 5 minutes here and 2 minutes here. And when we get to the 3-minute mark, it's just to pop that insight and to pop that quantum leaping where we drop them into some other thread of conversation. And it's really fascinating to watch just how accurate that can be, even when you're playing around and, playing with the concept. It's really, it's really interesting to watch that process of jumping down into that next level. And I think what this does is it breaks you through this moment of truth, because so often when you hit this barrier, clients just start to curl around on themselves and go into the spiral and get lost. And through the first thought technique, and you're dancing through this into this moment, it so often takes them into this space. And so the way that we work at getting around this is to pop them through using a quantum leaping process. So I'm going to put online this week the 13 essential questions, and you can start having a little look at those. And we can start, talking about how to use those. The key to popping into insight is often the quantum leap process, where we dive them into some other what may seem disparate conversation. And the best way to do that, as we're following, this thread, is to drop into that space of sensory intelligence and go with the very first thought. So for those that have just watched videos, it'd be really great to practice that first thought process so that you can actually access. And you might find you're using the process, but not necessarily consciously. And so for me, the first thought technique was about how do I bring consciousness to the body GPS, and that was just one way of doing that. And so to quantum leap, we're going to want to take that process, run first thought on it, and tell them the first thing that comes into our head, and run that. And more often than not, and we saw it the other day, that people pop into some whole new insight that they never ever would have got if it hadn't been through this process. And I think just chunking time down is going to force that process to come along. And I know for some of you, obviously still running, 30-minute, hour and a half session, whatever you run, and you may not give those up, but this is certainly a process that's going to help you to utilize through various stages of. And that's interesting. That's decided to stop now, which is good. So hopefully you can still see my screen, which is fine. But obviously it looks like, that drop down is what I call a quantum leap. Absolutely. So where you drop down and into some other concept that seems disparate at the time. And so often I'll lead the question with, so tell me about this word. What does that word mean to you? Like what significance does that word have for you? And often it'll take them into some other, often pop them past the moment of truth and dead right in the middle of insight. And once we pop that, we know we're really close to that insight. And that's the key. We want them to come out with this process, is to come out with that insight. Now, we're often, when I'm working, I'm crossing that line between coach and mentor. And I think, yeah, it's really interesting to watch because some coaches mentor rather than coach, even though you call it coaching. And so, from a mentoring point of view, sometimes there are processes that you take clients through. If it was a finance process, you might be showing them the process of cash flow forecasting or something, or some spreadsheet you're running with. And so I think that, that's obviously a different process to this. And there are going to be some times that, it's more advantageous to do the mentoring process. The way I run it in my practice from a coaching point of view is I might run an hour process at the start of every month and then 15 minutes every single week. And I reserve the start of the month to mentoring processes around diving deeper into a spreadsheet, a process, some other system, or something that they want to know. And then drop back into 15 minutes with the applied, actions that they're taking from the hour session that I have from a mentoring point of view. And so, even in the mentoring, you can still use this process. You can still dive deep and use this process. But if you're showing them, helping them build a website, for example, or, doing that, really deep mentoring, then obviously you're going to jump out of this process into mentoring and then jump back in. And that's certainly the way I use this because obviously this is a coaching process, not necessarily a mentoring process. But I get that a lot of coaches, are mentoring and not necessarily coaching, and I think this is an add-on to that, so that you can you can cut your time down. Cut your time down in those in between sessions because from a coaching point of view, it is about insight, and the value comes from insights and helping people to gain momentum again. And when you come out the other side of moment of truth and insight, that's what your aim is, to get them moving really, really fast. So I'm going to put up the 13 essential questions. I'm also going to put up the rap sheet, give you guys a look at the rap sheet. I'm going to ask you over this break to fill out rap sheets and send them back to you. And then I'm going to run some live sessions using the rap sheet and start to put the whole thing together, because I get that this, it's a bit tricky because we're doing sort of little chunks as we've gone through, and we haven't sort of put the whole thing together. So it can seem a little bit, confusing or a little bit disparate at the moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump up the rap sheets for you. I'm going to get you to fill in the rap sheet. I'm going to get you to send it to me a day or so before we have our next session, and I'll send invitations out to those next sessions later, probably tomorrow. So you can book in for the final two sessions. But next time I really want to run some full sessions. So those that have sent their rap sheets in, I'm going to run sessions with you. So you can actually see the whole process together, because it's been a little bit tricky doing that. And I'm going to see how we go doing it in a live webinar format. I've been a little bit amiss or hesitant to do it so far, but I think it's the best way for you to see exactly how it's going to work. And I think, I've given you most of the theory now. There's still a few little pieces to go, but I think it's really important that we get in using the rap sheet and get you seeing the whole process work, which might get everything to click a little bit easier and better for you. So that's what we're going to do, coming up. So love to hear what takeaways, what you've learnt, noticed, or shared. Love you to start typing some stuff in. Some home players start to become consciously active using sensory intelligence, especially sensory acuity. I find most people don't use that, and often sensory acuity is very much that gut response. Use intuitive intelligence and start to bump the insight. And so that's to bump them past the moment of truth, just chunk them down with a quantum leap question. I'm going to send you the question. I'm going to upload the questioning sheet. I'm going to upload the rap sheet. But I really want you to have a play with this. Those that haven't used first thought technique yet, this will be a great. You can start using that this week and use it from this point of view to really bump through moment of truth and bump into the insight. If you're not hitting moments of truth, or you're not seeing moments of truth, then the first thought technique will help you define that and get that. So I'd love to know what thoughts are about tonight, what you've learned, what you've got out of it. Next week we're going to go into the game. Well, next session we're going to go into the game, but I really want to get into your rap sheet and I want to show you that process and do some live work with the rap sheet, which will help you to put the whole model together and the whole piece of the pie together, and you'll be able to see how it works. That may help you, Corinne, especially around first thought technique, and really help you to get that. Great, thank you, GPS, especially at Century Community. Yeah, it does. It is a little bit like that. You're right, Corinne. It seems a little, yeah, very gestalt. I suppose it is in a way. And but I really want to tap into, deeply into that right brain. And first thought technique, and I know you only saw it last night. First thought technique is a technique I actually teach my clients, and it allows me to extract even more insights for them, or them to actually come up with that. So it's a cool technique to teach your clients as well. So just keep that in mind when you're playing with that. And so Leander says the three brains. Excellent, thank you. The three brains concepts, and so that's really great. Adam says he'd like to hear more about the nature of energy and extrapolate that a little bit more. I might do that next week, or I'll have a chat to you offline. And yeah, that's great. A few more with you, Corinne, and the sensory intelligence, and especially sensory acuity and intuitive intelligence. So really love you guys to have a play with that this week, to get out in the world and have a play. If you've just playing with first thought, have a go with that. I will send you an invitation to the next webinars in the next 24 hours, and I'll also upload the rap sheet and the questioning sheet. And I really, really want you to fill out your rap sheet and send it to me. Email it to me a day or so before. I'm not going to explain it. It's really self-explanatory. The sheet's very simple to fill out, and I just want you to have a go at it. And then I'm going to explain exactly how I use it with my clients, and we're going to see how it's going to play out. So thanks everybody for being on the webinar tonight. I will upload it in the next 48 hours. And you'll be able to see it online. I will send everyone an email when that's done, with also the forms, and I will then send out what's happening with the rest of the webinars, the 2 more to go. Yeah, I think I mentioned briefly dates for the next live events, but I'll have all of that for you next week. I've got one coming up in Sydney early next year, and we're just securing the venue for Melbourne, and also in Brisbane. So yeah, I'll let you know through in the emails when that's coming up, and obviously love anyone who can make it. There'll also be one in LA, I think around the middle of the year. We've just had some confirmation of that today, which is really, really exciting. So those that are overseas in America, there's an opportunity for you to come and join us live in Los Angeles around the middle of the year. I haven't got the formal dates yet, but definitely got the formal AOK that it's we've got quite a few people over there who want to do it. So that'll be really cool. So yeah, look forward to catching up with you really, really soon. And thanks.